Hey, welcome back to today's episode of the Success and Significance Podcast. I am super charged up for you to hear today's episode. It is with the founder and CEO, Chris Ratterman of ShadyRays Sunglasses. Listen, not only will you hear of the humble beginnings of where ShadyRays came from, but you will hear how Chris and his team were able to start an idea and to scale the idea to the amazing brand that they are today. I am excited for you to unpack today's episode. Let's listen up. Well, welcome everybody to today's episode. I am super excited. I got a good friend with me, somebody that believes in me, believes in the organization. He is a dreamer. He is a visionary to scale, which is probably one of his favorite words. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I have Chris Ratterman with me, the founder and CEO of ShadyRays Sunglasses. I don't have mine on, but my future is bright since I've been able to meet you, Chris. And I'm super honored that you're able to join us today. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to join you on the podcast.
Awesome. Well, we were talking just even a few minutes ago. We were starting to talk. Anytime, Chris, that I have the honor to be in your presence, you always inspire me. Your team is amazing. And I just want the listeners to know a little bit of the background. I love the story of ShadyRays. So help the listeners understand how ShadyRays came to be, and then how you and I got met and how we hooked up with Rock Solid.
So back in 2009, I was in corporate marketing, and this was on the forefront of social media marketing and how it's kind of evolved to where it is today with social media advertising. Instagram was not a thing yet. TikTok was not a thing yet, but Facebook was, and people didn't know how to use it. So I was the young marketer that got told to learn about social media and try to figure out this little thing that some of the smaller brands in the world are working on, and the big brands were not yet. I'm entrepreneurial in nature. I'm obsessed with brands in nature. And I was given a big opportunity to do that in a different industry. Fast forward to 2012, I had the idea for ShadyRays and wanted to develop my own brand that I put out into the world. All of that was trying to think about, as a disciplined marketer, what is our brand positioning, differentiated position, and what problem can we solve? And very quickly, I identified the problem of losing and breaking sunglasses as something that resonates with people then. It resonates with people now. It's easy to break sunglasses. And oh, by the way, most of them are $300. And it's a piece of plastic that you put on your face, and you go to get in the water, and you get in the mud, and you're out there doing crazy stuff with a $300 piece of plastic on your face and a cutoff t-shirt. And that was this moment of like, let's just see what we can build. Never assumed to be successful, never assumed anything, just took a step forward and started executing in it. Moonlighted that business, bootstrapped it, put a few $1,000s into it, what I had, some credit card debt, and just started building. It took 3-4 years to really get any traction at all, almost to kind of stand up the brand in its initial form. But we have leaned heavily on trying to do business the right way, trying to build as much quality as we possibly can for the price, pack that in. That still remains a big tenet. Have the loss or broken protection. And from day one, have a charitable impact in what we do. And that was always a piece of it. And that's shifted over time. And I'll get into that more. But it was always a key part of the formula. We have grown heavily through social media, through digital advertising, through product innovation. The snowball builds, and you keep pushing it down the mountain, and you build momentum, and you have starts and stops and steps forward and steps back. And along the way, you bring great people into it, and you get out of the way where you can, and you keep pushing a large vision, and you keep growing and seeing where you can take it with a process that you really enjoy, and that when we all at ShadyRays really enjoy it.
That's awesome, man. No, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, you're rolling, bro. So you're doing great.
So for our charitable impact, like this was always important. I did not want to just sell a product for cash. Like I always say, it's too hard to just have something that you sell for cash to pay your bills. Like it's got to be more than that. And initially, we actually went out and surveyed our initial customers, and we identified fighting hunger in America as a core need that we could help serve through Feeding America. And so we donated 10 meals for every order that we sold. And we did that for a large number of years. And that's been great for us. A lot of customers know us for that. still to this day, some of our legacy customers. And then we decided a couple years back that we wanted to expand the impact. We wanted to create very personal impact. We wanted to get to know the organizations and the people that we were helping. And we were expanding in this outdoor adventure space, which can mean extreme outdoor adventures, and it could mean just anything outside that people like to do in the simplest of ways. Our team found, specifically Evan on our team, found Rock Solid and presented Rock Solid to me as one of the initial organizations that we would work with for our ShadyRays Impact Program, which broadens our reach in charitable initiatives a couple years back. I remember that meeting. I remember being excited about Rock Solid from the get-go, and it was for those specific reasons. One, I was hearing about how closely held and passionate you and your team are. We care deeply about that. Not just what we can see online as far as a rating of an organization, but really how do the wheels turn? And two, building place that's for children, and then literally meeting those kids. Like, our team mentions by first name the children of the place sets we've been a part of regularly in meetings. Like, it's a crazy thing. It like gives me goosebumps even saying that. Like, Jax comes up and Logan comes up and like these names come up. And so that's a big part of why we're passionate about it. We can be part of it. It's personal impact, and it's very aligned with our brand. It's playing outside, and it's enjoying outside, and it's aligned with sunglasses. But at the end of the day, it's not a marketing tactic. We just want to do good as we grow.
Yeah.
And that's where we are today. And now we're at ShadyRays, kind of in that top 3 mid-price sunglasses brands in the US. Of course, you've got big brands, you've got kind of more commodity product on the lower end, but in terms of quality product and at $50, $100 price point, we are pretty prominent in that space, especially for an outdoor and active consumer.
And I've talked to you a couple of times about that too. Like, knowing your niche, right? Knowing your market is huge. And I know your goal is to be the number 1 mid brand, right? So that's the BHAG, and that's the part, like, man, the dreaming side. So you mentioned how you were stagnant for a little bit, almost not stagnant, but for 4 years you're trying to stand this stuff up. This is not some of the questions that I rehearse. I think that I like to go off script too. So what did that feel like those 4 years that you were trying to stand this organization up? Because I know we have a lot of listeners that are in that doldrum, right? It feels like there's no wind. What did you do, and how did you navigate that?
It's tough. It did not work for days and weeks and months on end. And that's really key to understand. That is the case for a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of hurry up and wait. There's a lot of things that just have to get built over time. And, I had a moment where I was sacrificing time with friends, time with family, holing up in Starbucks and different places with my laptop, just trying to build and do things. And then you put in 4 hours of work and you're exhausted and you lost money doing it. So you question that, right? In the darkest depth of these moments where you're sacrificing, you question that. For me, I had just made the decision that I was going to be an entrepreneur. That was going to be my life. So it was going to be this, or it was going to be something else. And at some point I would have pivoted, but I had decided to be an entrepreneur, and that's going to be my path to the end of the road. I continue to have the curiosity just to put another thing out there. And I wasn't focused on the money. I was focused on, can the money be a fuel for the next idea and the next thing? But like, that ultimately is what pushed me through, because there's not a light at the end of the tunnel for a while, and you kind of have to just dig down deep. What I tell people is, start working on something, dedicate everything to it, and outside of your essentials, and put your head down and lift it up 8 years later, and you probably have something. Yep. But it's really small amount of people that dedicate themselves to that degree to have the payoff. It's the same with anything. It's the same with the other career paths. It's the same with fitness. People give up, people start, people stop. But if you make that it can't be like the last hour of the day that you fit in a workout. It has to be your number 1 priority if you want to be, the top in that. Same thing with entrepreneurship. And so it was the highest priority in my life above all else, like almost to a toxic degree. Yep. And over time, you kind of build some other things back into the picture.
Yeah, it's interesting to that area, because I remember when we first started, man, for like the first 5 years, I was in the Starbucks, or I was in the little coffee shops, and like, I'm putting in all this effort. Then I have meetings in between, typing on the keyboards, and then at the end of the day, you're exhausted. and then you've lost money. You're like, hold on, I bought 4 cups of coffee, right? So to that part, you said something earlier that is pretty interesting. It's hard to sell just for cash. So I know what you're talking about, but expand on that a little bit. And then I want to go back to what you said. Like, you just made the decision that you're going to be an entrepreneur. And I believe, like, for you listening right now, the power is in the decision. And so if you make the decision, you keep your head down, you can navigate the doldrums or the dark tunnels, right? So expand a little bit more on, how did you even land on it's too hard to just sell for cash, and what does that mean?
I think the work and the weight of building something can feel so heavy that, and the delay in like having it pay your mortgage can be so long,
Right.
that you've got to have the passion and you got to have purpose with something, in my view, to get through those dark times. So if you're getting in it because you want to flip something in 5 years, or you're getting in it because you got to get out of your bad job and you got to do it in 12 months, it works for some people. It would not have for me. It would have failed. Would not have worked. It took too long. So I always have this North Star of, this is my form and my manifestation of putting good into the world. And that ultimately, that's what I care about the most. And so that keeps me kind of working through thick and thin.
No, that's so good, man. And the power is in the decision. So you made the decision. I know that your brother's a huge part of this too. How is it working with your brother? And hopefully he'll listen to the podcast. It's glorious. But I mean, so and it goes into what I'm kind of leading into. You got to have the right people in the right seats, right? So you're the entrepreneur, you're the founder, you're in the coffee shop doing everything. You're speaking the vision, you're casting the vision, and then your brother catches wind, and your brother catches the vision. So walk me through a little bit of how that happened.
So I'm a marketing and finance person, marketing for first and foremost, and leaning on the product side and the brand side. My brother was an industrial engineering leadership program, and it was 6 years younger than me. And at the time, we were at a crossroads. We were at a third-party logistics center with all of our shipments, and we were thinking about going to a larger one or doing it ourselves. He came to me and had the idea and said, hey, you could do this, showed me a spreadsheet and was like, here, you could do it internally, and this is what this could look like if you modeled it out. And ultimately, that became a spark for him being very operational minded, process minded, fulfillment, supply chain minded. I can say, here, go do this. I've had a lot of family and friends that have had interest in working at ShadyRays, and I've not done that in any case except for Dan. And the reason why is not because friends and family aren't qualified. It's because I don't want to spoil that relationship and change that relationship. With Dan, it was, I not only have him close with him, but I have a lot of faith in him as a manager. And it was like, you go do your thing. I don't manage Dan. He manages his side of the business. He leads his side of the business. I lead my side of the business. And so it's worked really well. And we don't have conflict because there is a really big separation into what we work on, and even our interests and where we dial in to add value to the business is dramatically different. So that's been a key for us.
Yeah, I think that goes into, and I know you're part of YPO and like leadership training. You love to read and stuff like that. Part of it, if you're listening too, like, you can't do it all. And I think that's really, like, Chris, you know who you are, you know your strengths, and you knew clearly who your brother was, and you knew his strengths. And I think even if it's not your family member and you're listening, I highly encourage you, as you start to exit, I mean, the dark days. I feel like one day it's light, one day it's a dark day, but that's just running a business. Finding that key person that can kind of do things better than you are. How did you come to realize that you couldn't do everything? Because I know the story of like setting up in the malls and stuff like that. Can you tell the audience, like, because I know they see the shelves and the stuff behind you and the new building, right? We just talked about that. How long can you call it a new building? But you have this building, you have a decent or a phenomenal brand, you have success. But talk to me about how, didn't you set up in the mall or something like that? I love that story about you and your brother doing that. So tell the listener about that.
My brother was in college. Strategy at the time was, you could build a brand, you can build a website, you can build inventory. Most people can get product in their kitchen and get there. Okay, you can find that online. Like where the rubber meets the road is in actually acquiring customers and finding the way to acquire customers, and that's where a lot of people get hung up. And that was where I was at. Like, let's test all these customer acquisition channels. Is it Google? Is it retail? Is it whatever? And one of those things to test was a mall kiosk. So I had another job. I had a job in Louisville. I didn't really want anybody to stumble upon me working at a kiosk in a mall selling sunglasses.
Right.
And so we went 15 miles away, went to a mall. I called up the mall management and I'm like, hey, I want a kiosk for 3 days. And they're like, perfect. We've got a bunch of them free because it's not that high demand. And it was $800 for a kiosk for 3 days. I only operated for 2 days. So we loaded it on Friday. I sat in one of those lounge chairs about 20 feet away and watched. And then my brother worked the kiosk. We went to Kinko's and did double-sided poster board, put the product on the kiosk. And he came up the sales tactics. It was actually genius. No one knew us at the time, 0 people. But he would go kind of put his arm in front of them. So almost like to block them with the product and say, have you heard of ShadyRays? They would say no. And he would be like, you haven't? Like they are really missing the boat. And rope them in that way was probably highly annoying to some, but ended up actually making a small profit, just not a big enough profit.
Right.
And but that was a test. That was a test channel, and that's why we did it.
What for you? So you've talked about some of the lows getting started. What have been some of the high points for you, Chris?
Oh gosh, the high points are, there's a lot of high points. I think from a commercial business high point perspective, we've passed some big milestones. I mean, we've had individual weekends of sales where we're doing, 50,000 to 75,000 orders. We've had, big Black Friday moments where we've had a lot of growth. We have these moments where we release a new product that we've been working on for a year to 2 years, and we find like real resonance with customers. And that's what gets me excited because, I'm obsessed with scale.
Right.
So it's all about putting a product out there with the right message, with the right creative and the right channel. And can we find success on this level and then just fuel it? So the team knows me to like be obsessed with like any given one thing at any given moment. And it's because we find like that thing and we fuel it. And a lot of the big successes and the excitement really comes in those next things that fuel the next stages of growth. And there's a whole host of other things, right? There's all the things around our team and getting into a new building and the grand openings in the stores. But at the end of the day, if we can find big commercial success with our customers at scale for new products, everything else is allowed to happen. Everything else is facilitated well and can be funded because we find that next like silver bullet moment.
No, that's and to scale also too. And I think some people are scared to even say that word. We were talking about it a little bit as a nonprofit. I don't think I've ever really heard many nonprofits talk about to scale. And I think it goes back to Chris, your obsession with an obsession, not in a bad word, your customer. You're obsessed with the customer. You're obsessed with the product. You were obsessed with the idea that even got you there. And I don't think that as an entrepreneur, if that word obsessed is not in your vocabulary at the very beginning, or even how long have you guys been around for?
12 years.
So for 12 years, Chris, and I see it, and I hope the listener can hear it and see it. Like the passion's still there. You're still obsessed with it. And that I think too is like you not chasing cash. It's not about the cash. It's about the idea and it's about the customer.
Yeah, it's a crucial point. It is a crucial point. Like I really believe that if you're not passionate about an idea or the business or the industry or some combination of those things in a way that really lights your fire when you wake up in the morning, like I think you're better off just not doing it at all. Like not to like have people sit on the sidelines, but you almost got to cut it off before it got to work out, but yeah, before it hurts your quality of life. I mean, like to me, this helps my quality of life. Working for 12 hours, looking at my screen for 12 hours without looking up helps my quality of life. But that's what it takes. And it's true. Like, it's easy to sit here now and be like, we're very successful. We've had all these things, but like, it really is still the case that there's bad days. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work. There's big challenges working on right now, like today, like before this meeting, big challenges we don't know the answer to. And now I can look back because we already blazed the trail. So now I can look back and with clarity, tell you all the things.
Right.
But looking forward, I can't. We're still figuring it out. And it kind of is inherently that continuous learning, continuous tackling, continuous handling of the bumps.
I think too, the coolest part, Chris, is what I hear you saying. You didn't have it all figured out. You had the idea, you had some of the knowledge base behind it. And for you listening right now is some of you all are in a position where Chris was. And if you have the obsession and you're not going to have everything figured out. And Chris, even before this podcast, I just left a meeting and I'm like, what are we going to do? Like that never goes away. You just have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then I think what you just said too, looking back and reflecting is something huge that a lot of people, because as a visionary, I'm a visionary. I know that you are. We're constantly like 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, 30 years down the road, right? But stopping long enough to celebrate and look backwards, I think is something a lot of entrepreneurs don't do. So how do you do that? And the other question I want to know is like, what does Chris's day look like too? Like people are fascinated with CEOs and what your day looks like. So how do you press pause and look backwards, or are you still trying to do that? Or walk me through some of that, man, as a visionary and still not losing focus of wherever you come from.
I do not do a great job of celebrating wins and looking
Yeah.
backwards. I do not. I love talking about ShadyRays. People want to ask about ShadyRays around the dinner table, around events. Like, I almost kind of feel like that's some of my moments of that, I guess. But like setting up a time for the team to get together, I'm still working on it. We'll call it a work in process, because we very much like look forward.
Right.
My day, I'm very big about having very regimented, planned days. I have an assistant, Lindsay, who is crucial for me. And I know it sounds fancy when you're starting out. I would have thought so, but like it is crucial for me to maximize the 12 hours that I have. So I work from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. with eating sometime in there and driving different locations sometime in there. But that's what I do. I work 60 hours a week, 5 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I don't work on the weekends. I don't work at night. And I don't even look at anything. And so at 5 a.m., 5 to 6:10, I am head down in my urgent email inbox. So that I have review for week that are less urgent. I have urgent inbox, and I'm just firing urgent emails from 5 to 6 p.m. when no one's awake, generally. 6 p.m., I get my kids up, feed them breakfast, get them out the door by 7. My wife takes them to school. Then I'm back on my computer from like 7:10 to 8:30. So I got like a couple hours of just like head down work. And then I'll work out. I'll work out get an hour in for working out. I'll take a shower, grab some food. I have all my meals pre-batched, and I'm in the office. And by 10:30, I'm in meetings. So I'm in typically meetings. I do a lot of meeting hygiene, like what meetings are productive, which are not productive. Meetings can be unproductive if you let it get away from you. So you got to say no to lots of meetings. But I am generally in meetings from 10:30 to 5. And if I can, I try to segment out blocks of time to do specific projects. But generally, I'm not doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I try to protect Thursday as a solo work day. My perfect Thursday is 5 to 5 with 0 meetings and myself in my head on my laptop. That's like my favorite time.
I was like, it's today Thursday. I was like, oh man, I messed up your perfect Thursday. No, today's Wednesday. All right. I was like,
Thursday's all screwed up tomorrow. But sometimes it's not. And that's why I do my solo work day. And then Friday is an admin day. So I work remote Thursdays, Fridays, and it's very much like admin thinking solo work time. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, I'm getting my morning urgent block, and I'm just back to back.
Man, so much nuggets here. Like Chris, like the fact is that screams discipline, that you have to have the discipline, you have the obsession, you have the commitment. And so time blocking is something that I try to study something once a year, or one thing a year, to become an expert at. And that's managing my calendar, because by me saying yes to something, I'm saying no to something else. So with your dedication to your calendar, if you're listening and you do not have control over your schedule, even in the early stages of an entrepreneur, all the way to where Chris is, if you don't have control over your schedule, someone has control over your schedule. And so I don't believe that you're being as productive. That is gold. So if you need to hit rewind, I don't even know if you can hit rewind on digital anymore, but go back and listen to that again. His day classification, how he's narrowed it into solo work, to Fridays he works remote. Like, just go back and listen to that. Put yourself in the situation and see how you can manage your calendar. Chris, that was brilliant. Really quick, man, before we go, I feel like we could do this all the time. I'm fascinated with just how you're able to do everything. Last question is 2-part. What does success look like to Chris, and what does significance look like to Chris?
Success is being able to ultimately provide greater impact to the world and people through the businesses and the leadership that I can provide in a lot of different facets. That is ultimately what it is. That has to be facilitated through sustainable businesses that are built for the long term, and which is not a small feat, right? Businesses can go up and down very quickly, and things go a lot of different directions. The market goes a lot of different directions, and so very very focused on having a robust, sustainable brand for the long term. I don't assume that's going to be the case. I assume that I got to fight for it every day.
Yep.
So now I'm on no pedestal. And then what does significance mean for me? I think if I can be thought of as significantly helpful to people that I interact with, family, team, friends, then that is what's most important to me. And that's an example of not scale, actually. I talk about the scale is on the other part, like create good that we can multiply. And this is actually more within a smaller to medium circle of where I can have significance within my best and closest relationships.
No, that's good, man. I said last question, but this is the last question. Chris, what does ShadyRays look like in 10 years?
ShadyRays is a household name in sunglasses today. With the average person thinks about sunglasses, they can rattle off Ray-Ban and Oakley and maybe Maui Jim. And then there's Amazon and gas station stuff. And most people won't tell you a brand that's really doing it great and giving you a great product. And that's affordable. It's a household name, and it's really dynamic and relevant and current and setting the standard for how to do business the right way. But they will think about ShadyRays first when they think about that in the future.
Man, thank you, Chris. So if you're listening right now, go to ShadyRays, get you a pair of sunglasses. Then you can just be crazy and lose them, do life actively, right? Make a huge impact. And I promise you, I've done some warranty stuff with ShadyRays before. But Chris, I'm honored. If you're listening, go buy some ShadyRays, because every pair that's sold, Rock Solid Foundation gets the impact with. We get to love and serve more families. So not only are they awesome sunglasses, but they make an impact on the pediatric cancer community. Chris, I'm honored. I'm privileged. And as always, guys, thank you so much for listening. I honor you and I honor your time. Until next time on the Success and Significance podcast, I'm your host. We'll talk with you soon. Thanks.